Hey guys, this is Megan from You Go to Be Kidding. This week we're talking about the dog. We're talking about our livestock guardian dog, River, and how on earth do we keep her in and safely on our property when all of our fences look like this or worse. And so the tool for us has been a SpotOn GPS collar. We have the box here. It has been working really well for us. We've had it for 3 months now, and I've found lots of videos online on how to train the dog and the unboxing, what comes in the box, but I didn't find a lot of good information on what those first few months actually looked like. How did you go about trusting the dog on the fence, and that whole process and how it worked? So I wanted to share our experience over the last 3 months with you. It's been going really well and I'm excited to have it. So let me show you how the collar's been working, a little bit about how we trained her, and just kind of how our process has been. And then an awesome story about customer service. I am super pleased with them. Bummed I needed it, but very pleased with my experience. So let me show you our collar and how that's been working for us. Hey, River. Hey, girl. Yes, you're a good puppy. Good girl. All right, let's go show him. So here's River. She has the collar on her neck. River, come here. Come. Good girl. Let's see. Sit. Look at you being a good girl. Let's see if I can show it to you on her neck. But here is the SpotOn collar. Direction doesn't matter, it's upside down. What matters is that the antenna portion is pointing up to the sky. And then she does always wear a normal collar in case I need to hook her up to a leash or something. But she's a good girl. Go play, pup. So she has access to our whole property at the moment. And that has taken quite the process of getting her used to it. So I do want to show you kind of how it worked logistically for us to train her. And I feel like there were some parts that were a little confusing for her, but over time they kind of clicked. So our property is a long rectangle. So here looks out to the street, and we have somewhat narrow, this is our garden, so it goes over here to the left and then pans through the garden and then to our home. And then our property ends just past the propane tank there. You can kind of see it there. So it's not super wide. And then it is a long rectangle property to the back. So we've got our kids' playset. It goes well beyond the barn. So one of the first challenges was figuring out how best to train her to the collar. The advice is to put her on a leash with the collar, and then if you have your phone open, the phone will beep when the collar is. The collar is also making a noise, but it's really hard to hear. I think my kids can hear it, but I can't. So the dog can definitely hear it. Anyway, so you want to have them on a leash. You want to bring them up so they can hear the sound and then train them to go back. Thankfully, we've trained River and out. Hey, chickens, River's weakness. Anyway, we have trained her an out command in the barn, so she gets out of the milking stall with us. That was super helpful. So having a command I could put with the action of hooking her up to a leash. Hey, no. This is the one disadvantage. I don't have a correction for her. So we have always used a sport dog field trainer with her to correct her. And I didn't want to double collar her with electronic things. And so stuff like this, I only have my voice to correct her. And that's actually one disadvantage. It's probably the only disadvantage. River, no! I'm going to have to pause. So I did get her off. So that is actually a huge part of the SpotOn kind of entry period. I have to be able to trust her to be on the farm unsupervised. And most of all, this Johnson Scovich tractor is secure. I mean, I guess if she really tried, she could totally get into it. And we have to be careful with that. But she's not spending all day like out here obsessed with them. It's just because I brought her down here. She actually spends all day up at the house with us. So that's one thing to be aware of as you are prepping to use a collar like this. You have to make sure that all the areas she can get to are something that she can be trusted with. So I'm standing in front of this chicken tractor, Making sure I claim it from her. She has calmed down. I was able to get her calmed down around the chickens. Anyway, we were talking about how I trained her at first and how she does have an out command. That was very helpful. So overall, let me kind of show you how this works. So River has her own electric fence area. We use it for all our animals, but for River too. And so she has lived in there full time. And when she was out with us, she would have a sport dog e-collar on so we could correct her. And then in the mornings, you know, when we milk the goats, we bring our goats to the barn and we'd put that collar on her, and that worked really well for a long time. But what that meant too is that during the day, when we go in the house, when we're done with chores, she spent a lot of time just in her electric fence, and then definitely all night, obviously. And we were really hoping to get her some more freedom, both for the safety of the animals, because she can help guard more area if she's actually out, but also just for the interaction that she can, you know, hang out with us more. So step one was just around our barn area. Since we had her out with us milking, we wanted the SpotOn area to kind of go around there. And then when we would finish milking, we would work in just like 10 or 15 minute increments, and we'd take her on a leash and we'd take her up to the boundary. I kept it pretty small, which might have been a little confusing at first, but I have no way of testing my exterior fences. So that, like, these are some of them. It's just this old field fence. In some spots it's okay, and in other spots it's totally ruined. It's not animal safe at all, or animal proof. So anyway, like, I don't have a way to walk through that boundary. If I set the SpotOn boundary to right here, I don't have any way of like training her through that boundary. So I had to do a smaller area outside my barn, and I would just set a pretty big area where she could be, and I'd have to take her up to it so she could hear the sound. And eventually there are 2 tones and then a actual static correction or vibration. You can change that setting to whatever you need. And so we'd have to kind of work with her in each setting. This took maybe 10 or 15 minutes a day for probably 2 or 3 weeks for her to understand that when she heard that sound, she needed to turn around and go back. And so I had to test it too. The kids would help me. I would walk through the boundary, and then the kids would be there kind of holding the leash. So if River followed me and it started to beep her, her first instinct when she got beeped was to come to me, especially because on the field trainer, whenever we'd beep her, it was almost always a come command. And so she naturally wanted to come to me when she was getting corrected, but that doesn't work if I'm outside of the boundary. So that was a lot of practice, a couple weeks of doing that every day, or even a couple of times a day, to take her out and get her to the boundary and then have me walk through it and make sure that she knew that she couldn't go through it. She had to turn around and come back. After at least a month or so of doing this and making sure she was good to go, we started to test her out like during the day when we were home. So we expanded the boundary to include our home area, and so pretty much from the barn to our home. Let's see, I can show that. So barn all the way up to our house, and we wanted her to have that area so she could, you know, have freedom and also protect our animals and just be out and even let us know when somebody comes to our home. And that worked really well. There were a few things to correct her on, but we kept her boundaries small like that. And then we had to kind of make the jump and just make the boundary the whole yard. Changing the boundaries on her seemed to confuse her a little bit, which is understandable. But the consistent training, so she was learning to listen to the collar, I think helped too. So she learned to listen. Hey, if it doesn't beep at me, I'm all right to go. And if it does beep at me, no matter where that may be, then she needs to listen. So that, it took time, but it wasn't necessarily difficult. It's about being patient and not just expecting it to work right away. So once she'd had lots of practice during the day, knowing that we could trust her with the cats, which is still an ongoing thing. She has a ton of unsupervised time with them, and they're fine. And sometimes when we're out, the cat and the dog get into it. It's weird. But once she's had tons of time there, then we started doing like short trips. We'd go to the grocery store, somewhere where we were very close by and where we could come back quickly. And we do pay for the tracking subscription. So for SpotOn, you do not have to buy the subscription. I think it comes out to like $5 a month. Honestly, I'm not sure. But for us, it was definitely worth it because if she gets out, I need to know where she is, and the live tracking, as soon as she leaves the boundary, it sends a message to my phone and lets me know, and it tracks her as she's out. So that was worth it for me. It's cheaper than other plans, and it's just a set it and forget it. So I'm very happy with their tracking thing. I will say it's a little glitchy when I'm at home and trying to like do it, which is weird. Maybe it's a phone or a cell issue, but every time she has gotten out, it has worked just fine. And she's only really ever gotten out because she wasn't quite sure where the boundary was. I might have set it like too far in from our fence or something, and she like went out of it. We really haven't had an issue. We let her out for like hour trips, and then we've extended that to letting her out when we go farther away. And so far, she has done really well. She has not gotten out at all. Again, the only time she's gotten out with us is I didn't have it all the way to the back of our property, and she was out with the kids, and it beeped her, and she did come right back, but our fence back there is bad, and technically her boundary was not even the edge of our property. So she went a little bit further than she thought she could, and the kids didn't even realize it because she was out with the kids without me. And so I had my phone. I knew she was out because it had alerted my phone, but the kids didn't know, and she made her own way back. And that was really encouraging too, because if I was with her, I'd just call her and she would come to me. But the kids didn't even know it had happened. So she came back on her own. That was fantastic. And then another great experience we had was up in our front yard. River is so people friendly. She knows our neighbor, and Damien and the boys were talking to our front neighbor, and she came up near the fence, and her collar must have beeped. Nobody could hear it, but she immediately turned and ran back the other direction. And so she is listening to it. She's responding to it, which is great. It's a little bit of a bummer to not be able to like go up and get pets from the neighbor. But at the same time, she needs to respect that fence. She needs to stay away. There's like a 10-foot warning zone. And I would rather that she listen to that fence and that warning zone than that she gets to hang out with the neighbor. That's not her job. So that's kind of been our experience so far. We have not yet let her out all night with it. So again, we're 3 months in. We started in April, and this is the middle of July. We're 3 months in, and just the other night, maybe last week, we were like, hey, should we leave her out at night? And I think she's ready. The only thing to consider is that the collar does not last all day. I can't just like put it on her in the morning and then let her have it all night. So we'd have to find a time in the afternoon to charge it a bit to make it last all night. And so that makes it a little tricky for us because our property, she is an outside only dog. She does not come in the house. So finding a time where we can charge that in order to give her time at night. And then our second consideration at night is the cats, just making sure that she does not get herself into trouble with them. So that's a dog issue, not a collar issue. But I think that has kind of covered it all. Oh, the big oops. Why did I have to deal with customer service? Well, that was a mistake on my part. So a couple of weekends ago, we were out doing yard work. Damien was bush hogging the back, and I was actually mowing our front section. So of course I had gone through, I had made sure to pick up any things lying around, and I'm mowing right in the section behind our house, and all of a sudden I hear a clunk in the mower, and a little puff of smoke. And I'm thinking to myself, man, what on earth was on the ground? I checked, there was nothing there. And lo and behold, it was River's collar. It was a SpotOn collar. Oh, crushing blow. And so it had fallen off of her. And that had happened maybe 2 or 3 times. Enough that I had been starting to think in the back of my mind, man, what are we going to do if this collar falls off of her? And thankfully, the GPS tracking it, it's not like I'm going to lose the collar. I can find it. But if it falls off too much, I'm definitely going to mow it over again. How would I know it was there? How I don't check on her when I'm home. Like, I don't use my phone to check in where she is on location because I can see her. I know where she is. Anyway, so I didn't think to check and notice on my phone that the collar was in a different spot than she was. Anyway, after a moment of panic that I'd run over this super expensive collar, and I called customer service and looked it up. So they do have a one-time, no questions asked accident, forgiveness. They ship you out a refurbished collar, no questions asked, which is pretty awesome. And then I really questioned them about it falling off, because hey, if this collar falls off, that's kind of not my fault that it was lost and destroyed in the first place. And the technician advised me that you need to cut off the extra portion of the extra length when you size it. So it comes with this real long rubber, like the collar has a lot of extra spots on it, and then you put the clip for the size of your dog. And I had left that extra bit on there because who wants to cut on something? And the technician on the phone told me, hey, that often that extra piece of collar is what kind of like bumps the buckle and opens it up. So, and he said if for some reason you ever need longer collar, we can get you a new piece. So that was reassuring that, hey, even if for some reason I would need to change the length of the collar, that I can get that piece, and so not to be hesitant to cut that off. So we got the new one in. We got that edge piece cut off, and so we've had the new collar for several weeks at least, and it has not fallen off once. So that seems to have fixed it. They also changed the design of their buckle a little bit, and either one or both of those things has made a difference. It has not fallen off at all, and so I'm really happy with that. I'm so pleased with customer service. They're very, very easy to talk to. They're quick to respond, and they were happy to help me out. And if for some reason there was another accident to happen, they do have some cool price structures where you can purchase a refurbished unit at a significant discount, and even I believe a new unit at a pretty significant discount too. And so that's great. It is expensive. That's one of the things to talk about. Is it really worth the almost $1,000 price tag? That's the big piece. Would I buy it again? And yes, I would. So I think when we bought ours, it was on sale for about $900, and I've seen some coupons down for even more, like $800. And then we did purchase the tracking, which I can look up and put on the screen how much that tracking was. It wasn't a ton, but it all adds up. And yes, considering that none of my fences on my farm are at all animal proof, this is a huge help, a huge peace of mind. A $1,000 collar is far cheaper than any amount of fencing that I could put in any area. It also gives her the freedom to go where she wants. It gives me the freedom to change the fence if I don't want her to be able to come all the way back. I'm standing back here. Let's see, I'll turn around and show you. She is way down by the creek. Oh, I don't know if you can even see her. She's way down in there. And I don't have to worry that she's off doing who knows what, because it doesn't matter as long as she stays on my property. And I want her to have that freedom, and we have it far cheaper than I could fix the fences. It's also really wooded. You can see these trees in our fence. Fixing fences here would be quite the project, and definitely one that we do not have the capacity to do right now. And so I'm super pleased with this collar. The next test for us will be nighttime, and I will post an update with that if anything changes or goes wrong, or if I'm unhappy with it. But so far, I am so pleased with the SpotOn collar. It has worked really well. It was fairly straightforward to train her to, and customer service was fantastic. And that's always good to know, that if you have trouble with an expensive product, you can get the help you need. So if you have any questions about the collar or about how we trained her, how it's working, feel free to ask below. She, even as a livestock guardian dog, responds to a pretty low level setting on the boundary, which is fantastic, because on the sport dog collar she can withstand quite a few clicks, but night might be a different scenario. So anyway, I'll keep you guys updated as we transition her to guarding nights. But for daytime use, even when we are not here on the farm, it has worked so well. So thanks for watching, guys. We hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you learned something. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask. Thanks for watching. See you next week.